Welcome to the explications of Sonnets 61 through 70. You know how it works by now, and if you don't, what are you doing here? Go watch the other ones first. But anyway, we're just going to go straight into it. So we're starting at Sonnet 61 today of the Bloodless Blade. So the merchant and the miller's son returned to town to find exhaustion overrun their home as people frightened they'd be burned if they did not comply, amassed the sum each side declared they'd need to fund their war. As I stressed in the much earlier ones, when I'm doing enjambment like this across many lines, I mean 5 lines, but that's still many when you've only got 14 lines in a stanza. When I'm doing enjambment across a whole bunch of lines, that's because emotions are flaring high. So I do enjambment more when there is more tension and more emotion. And so what's going on here is they've come home, and the both kingdoms, or well, the kingdom and the fiefdom, are both saying, hey, we need higher taxes because there's going to be a war, and we need to fund that war. And that's really all that means. So no matter what they give, it's not enough. Until we've given up our floors and doors and roofs and walls, we'll never give enough. This is the miller's son talking, saying that no matter what they do, this system is still going to exploit them. It's still going to take stuff from them. And it's just not worth doing this because they're just going to keep taking and taking and taking, and it's just not fair. The merchant took her husband's shaking hand. If no one else will, we'll protect our town. So immediately she's jumping to, okay, well, yeah, the system is broken, but let's be the people who fill in the gaps in the system. Let's fix the mistakes that the system makes and do this ourselves. We needn't hold a sword to take a stand. We'll break the roads to slow their armies down, do everything we can to waste their time till their rewards no longer worth the climb. So she's suggesting that they essentially engage in kind of systemic sabotage to make sure that it's just really inconvenient to get to the town and really inconvenient to raid it or pillage it or wage war over it. That's 61. Let's go to 62. The second prince withdrew his tulip blade to go discover why his carriage stopped. So he's on the road to this town, and we can assume they've ripped up the road, as the merchant suggested. Your Highness, you should have the news relayed. Now, this is the priest talking, so the priest from a long time ago. He's saying, hey, your life is really important because you are a prince. You should probably have someone else check. I will not have the men I lead adopt a view that my life has more worth than theirs. I'm not a priest like you, so I must fight. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. He does not view himself as being above the soldiers he is charged to leave, and so he will do the work himself. He insists on doing the work himself. Then once the fight's begun, you'll do your share. This is referring to whatever a priest might do in a war, which, generally speaking, will be giving offerings to the gods in this case, and also holding funeral services and other such things. So it's quite a morbid responsibility that he has to watch people go into battle and kill themselves, essentially. And then he just has to stand there and watch and do bureaucracy. Just religious bureaucracy is all he gets to do. It took the prince a glance to know their plight. He was not even fully out the door when he observed the ravaged road ahead. As I said, what the merchant suggested, they've done it. This is no natural way, of that I'm sure. A barricade to see our march stopped dead. I'll scout the town and see what I can learn. Command the men to wait for my return. Again, he's saying, I'm going to go do this myself. This is my responsibility, not theirs. I do not see myself as being above them. So really, this entire sonnet is just character building for the prince. 63. The second prince made sure his steps were soft as he advanced along the broken road. The town had clearly pulled the stones aloft, so any march towards them would be slowed. Just reiterating the same thing again, they're doing all they can to prevent people from getting there. And so our royal guest becomes a scout, the merchant said, her voice and stance like ice. Voice and stance like ice, she's rigid, she's angry, everything she's saying is kind of in this kind of gritted teeth kind of way. The reason I've described it like ice is because every movement, every word is kind of a crack, like rock. Like a cracking of rock rather than any natural speech, because this pisses her off that he's come anyway despite what he's been begged to do. You know my face? How did you find me out? The prince saying that. You're standing in the street. I used my eyes. The merchant, being a competent person and being like, yes, I saw a person standing there who I didn't recognize. Duh. But how could you have known that it was me? There are no portraits painted of my face. So this is more characterization of the prince. He doesn't see himself as above people, and also because he's the second prince, he's never going to be king. His job within this kingdom is to be the leader of the military, just because that's how this kingdom's hierarchy is set up. The first prince will become the king, second prince will become the leader of the military. And so he just hasn't bothered to get any portraits commissioned because he's like, well, it's not my job to be a diplomat, it's my job to wage wars, which is kind of short-sighted of him, because ideally, if you're in charge of the military, you want to not do fighting as much as possible, because the main role of a military is as a deterrent rather than as people to go do the stabbies. Or at least it should be, anyway. Who else could someone with that weapon be? Because he has his tulip sword, which, as we've said earlier in the poem, it's incredibly ornate. It's like the fanciest thing you've ever seen in your entire life. You're not a smith. This could be commonplace. No, it couldn't. The stories claim our second prince is shrewd. My son is 6. He's more astute than you. This is the merchant sort of letting her emotions get at the better of her. She's just pissed off that he's here, pissed off that she has to deal with this, angry at the entire system. Then this immediately leads on to Sonnet 64, with the second prince, immediately responding to that. My army marches to protect your son and every son and daughter who would lose their homes if vitriolic leeches run campaigns of made-up vengeance, disabused of any thoughts of liability. So he's saying, we need to stop them. We need military intervention because otherwise they'll just assume that they will not be held accountable for anything. This is what needs to happen within the system. Whether there have to be wars, this is just essential to protect people. Very, very much a feudal mindset. What noble mandates hide designs to kill? The merchant, basically. One line takedown of everything he just said. Just like, yeah, you're saying that this is a noble cause, that you're trying to protect us, but also, what are you actually here to do? Oh yeah, stab people. My world will not be your casus belli. Repeating what her husband, the miller's son, said way, way earlier. Like Sonnet 5 or something. Like really, really, I'm not going to actually go find it, but yeah, it's really, really early on. The prince's head shot up, which is him recognizing, oh, you're his wife. You're my childhood friend's wife. So you instilled my sister with the will to scheme her flight to who knows where while I was occupied with friends I'd lost come bearing distant plights. So this is him realizing, oh, that's why you actually came. It wasn't just to petition me. It was to check in on Suhit. That's why you were there. That's him finally realizing what actually went on. Ismoin and Suhit found the will to ride? This is obviously the first she's hearing of this. Then Suhit's the one whose reform I believe in. I'll make her the time that she needs to achieve it. She's switching to amphibrachia tetrameter, going against the system, joining Suhit's revolution, and so she gets to have amphibrachia tetrameter, which gives her 2 extra syllables per line because she's claiming that back from the system, refusing to follow its rules. And that will be the meter she speaks in for the rest of the poem. She's in amphibrachia tetrameter now. 65. I don't need your permission to protect the people I am sworn to guard as prince. Again, continuing straight on from 64. And the prince is just going, I don't need your permission to do this. I'm the prince. It's my job. You're just some commoner. I chose this tulip pommel to reflect in action's toll, so I won't be convinced to turn my back on pain as I once did. Him reflecting on the fact that he chose this because of the fact that when he walked away from the village of the miller and the miller's son, that caused their economy to crash, and by his inaction, it was destroyed. And he's saying, I will not do that again. I refuse to do that again. That's really why he's here. That's what's motivating him, is the fact that it's just not something he can bear to do again, to leave his friend to fend for himself. Hence, I am duty-bound to turn from you. Like, you are asking me to do something that I cannot do, that I cannot, within my moral frameworks, I cannot abide this. And then we have a little bit of a time skip. He ordered men to work till they undid the damage wrought to stop them passing through. So he's rebuilding the road that they lifted the stones out of to stop them. Then soldiers hauled themselves atop the ridge and watched their foes ascend the other side. So they got here at the same time as the army of the fiefdom. Such spectre made a matchstick of the bridge, for terror its enormity denied. This is the bridge. The entire town, or almost all of the town, sits on this bridge. This bridge is massive. It goes across this big, deep, fast-flowing river, and it's huge, and it has a town on it. But this is such a horrifying thing, such a terrifying thing, that compared to these armies, this massive bridge just looks tiny. The merchant went back home to find her son. She felt the crushing tide, and was not done. So she recognizes how hopeless this is. She recognizes how impossible the situation is. But she has a child to protect. She has her son to protect. So she will keep fighting. This is her resolving to just keep fighting no matter what. 66. Mama, why is everything so scary? The merchant's son was clinging to her side. Note, inverted, this is trochaic pentameter, so bum 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 bum, instead of iambic pentameter, bum 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 bum, because the son feels like he's been swept up in the world around him, and he has absolutely no control over anything, and he's terrified, which that kind of panic gets trochaic pentameter within the poem, which we have seen before with Suhit on 2 occasions. When they see you, they just won't stop glaring. So he's talking about the soldiers, saying whenever they're looking down from up there, from up on the ridge, they're just glaring at everyone like they have this intent to kill. Someone even says they've planned a landslide. So clearly people have actually gone and talked to these soldiers to ask what's going on, and there have been rumors that have spread about what plans they have. The merchant's fingers stilled against her son, because she's recognizing how terrible a landslide would be. A landslide designed to cut off a supply line. And that's what she's realizing is, they want to cut off the supply line to the village, and therefore the supply line to whatever army they're fighting against. No matter which side is making this plan, it's bad, because it's going to cut off their food supply. And then we switch to the miller's son responding to this. By now I'm sure it's far too late to run. If you believe that this is their design, then I will support you in spoiling their scheming. So he switches to amphibrachia. He's like, you know what? If you believe in this, I believe in this too, and I will join you in protecting our town and joining Suhit's revolution. So, Ruzila, I know you've already got something in mind to convince these invaders they're dreaming if they think that violence and bloodshed can come in without invitation and meet a reception of anything other than outright rejection. I butchered that, but that's fine. You're getting the point here. So, Ruzila, the merchant is getting a name because once you've gone against the system, once you've joined this alpha-brachic tetrameter, you get to have a name. And so she's got a name now, and soon enough the miller's son will get a name as well. So he's saying, I know you, I know you've got a plan, so let's do it. I'm going to help you, I'm going to make this plan happen, no matter what. And then, over here, Sonnet 67, they set the plan into motion. Is this 67, 67, 68, 69, 70? Yes. 67. Oop. The miller's son approached the fiefdom's camp, so he's going to talk to the invaders, his empty hands held high above his head, showing that he's not a threat. He's clearly not a threat. You needn't champ at every shadow on the road ahead, the general snapped when soldiers drew their blades. This general is probably the only experienced person among the fiefdom's army, because the lord, as we know, had to actually raise an army. He didn't have a large enough standing army to go and do this. So the general's one of the only ones in the fiefdom's camp who actually has experience. And so he's like, hey, no, we need local knowledge to actually be able to win here, because if they have local knowledge and we don't, that's going to be really bad for us. So I take it you're a local from the town. Again, he values local knowledge because he knows it's going to be invaluable to any war effort. That's right, I've come to ask you to parley. That's right, I've come over to ask you to parley, because he's in an alpha-brachic tetrameter now. Yes. Yeah. I was going to give him a name here before, but he'll get it in a minute instead. That's right, I've come over to ask you to parley. Then tell me why I'd have my men back down. Okay, explain why this is good for me. Give me a reason. Just look at the state of your soldiers and horses. They're all exhausted from getting here. And look at the state of the enemy army. Experienced, loyal, and larger than yours is. Because remember, the kingdom has a centralized army. They don't have to just get troops. They have a centralized standing army. So this is all true. He's not lying here. Come rest and negotiate. What could the harm be? The general gazed across his camp and sighed. That's something I suppose I can abide. So the general's doing that because he's like, okay, I'm not going to win a fight right now, so I guess I should. The miller's son is doing this because he wants to stall the general and prevent... What is the word? Word. Collateral. That's the word. He wants to prevent collateral damage. Then 68. Ruzila found the second prince and priest. So she's gone to the defending side. You summoned your army to rescue my husband, she said before the guards could have her seized. So immediately saying, hey, hear me out. But violence is not something you are accustomed to leading, regardless of what's been demanded of you since the day you were born as a royal. So please, for your friend, let me say what my plan is. Plan rhyming with the second syllable of demanded here. Sometimes I do that. Instead of rhyming the whole last two syllables, I just rhyme the second last one in those ones, which I think is fine. I'm sure some poetry purists will get angry at me, but I do what I want. But yes, this is her appealing to him and saying, hey, come on. We both want the same thing. I want my husband to stay alive. I also want to stay alive. You want that too. So please, let me talk. And then my priest will say why those opposed must boil. So basically, he's just trying to defer to the priest. He's trying to find a reason why he can ignore her again, because he's already said, I'm going to ignore you. And he really, really just doesn't want to listen right now. But remember, the priest has gone through the same thing as him. He's watched the village be destroyed because he left. Because the priest left and because the prince left. And so he's got this same perspective, but he's older and he's got more life experience. Mikaela is the goddess of civilization. If war's your intention, the priesthood of Arma is far more equipped to indulge your persuasions. So Arma is the deity of war. War, love, and dreams specifically, but you don't need to know that, because from context clues, you can tell that Arma is the god of war. It's far more equipped to indulge your persuasions, but I'll not condone such a nearsighted drama. We both share the blame for destroying that village. Its memory cannot be incentive to pillage. So this priest has now switched to amphibrachic tetrameter upon hearing this exchange of, hey, I want people to not get hurt. And the priest being like, no, people have to get hurt. It's inevitable. And the priest is being like, wait, no. No, it's not inevitable, is it? She's right. No, I have to actually step in. It is my obligation as a priest of Mikaela, the goddess of civilization, to step in and to stop this. So he's, for a different reason, joining this revolution. So he's joining this revolution sort of out of his own morals. He realizes that the system simply cannot allow for his moral frameworks of protecting civilization, so he has to switch sides to the side of Suhit's revolution. And then we immediately follow on from that. His anguish labelled by the priest's rebuke, the prince appraised the town he'd come to save. The silence on the wind was not a fluke. It screamed of people who could not be brave. So what I'm saying with people who could not be brave is they can't afford to go out there and take a stand because it could cost them everything. And I do mean everything, not just their lives. If they die, then their families who depend on them, they starve as well. So they cannot afford to go and take a stand. With courage came the call to risk their lives. But generations could not be assured by loss of life. So generations here being like, you cannot be sure that this town will survive, that the children will survive, that they'll be able to go and have children of their own, just by going and fighting and dying for them. No matter how they strive to be the last. So no matter how much they're striving to be the last person to die so no one else has to die, you can't guarantee that. There's no guarantee that you will be the last one to die just to protect this fragile piece, so you need something sturdier. So quietude's allure that claimed to cost no more than ignorance supplied the hope they clung to in the dark. So they're saying, if we just pretend this isn't happening, if we just pretend that we agree with whoever wins this fight, maybe they won't hurt us. Maybe being ignorant is better than knowing things. Supplied the hope they clung to in the dark, the prince had rendered in belligerence. So this is sort of, the prince is blaming himself here. He's saying that he brought the darkness upon this village. This town, not this village. He brought the darkness upon this town by his own just pig-headedness. Then we get him speaking. Myopia, what evil I embark. So, his internal short-sightedness, how much cruelty he's allowed to happen just because of his own personal short-sightedness. It's silence in my mind across the world. So, this one is a very metaphorical line. Him saying that he has sort of silenced anything that would say anything other than I need to fight. He silenced any other potential options. And that silence has spread out across the world to be sort of silencing the joy and silencing the culture of the places he's going to. That's what I'm aiming at. That's what I'm angling for with that line. My duty now must be to keep it furled. So I have brought about this terrible thing. I have to rein it in. It's my job to clutch it tight and stop it getting out and hurting people. Note that he has not switched to alpha-brachic tetrameter. He's still leaning on this system. He still feels that he needs it as a crutch, as opposed to a lot of other people who have now switched to alpha-brachic tetrameter. He's not. He's been hurt by the system too much. So yeah, that was number 69, and so this is 70. The miller greeted leaders come to talk on what demands, if met, might stay their arms, because the miller is an older person now, so she would be someone who is sort of respected for her age and her wisdom at this point. Come sit, I've made you tea, you mustn't gawk. I find the cold deprives it of its charms. Was Omvet's manner crude enough to vex? Civility escaped him as a boy, and flees him still as though he cast a hex. This is all strategic. All of this is strategic. So she is someone who's lived long enough that she knows how to bend the rules of the system enough to sort of protect herself without having to revolt against the system. Obviously, she's in favor of this revolution, but she doesn't personally need to go outside the rules and the language of the system in order to undermine it or in order to subvert it. She can do that herself without leaving the bounds of the system because of her age and her experience. And so she's revealing here that she is the mother of the miller's son. So she actually names him as well, Onvet, because he gets a name because he switched to alpha-brachic tetrameter. He's joined the people who are going against the system, and the system basically reduces you to just a title, reduces you to just a role. Once you go outside the system, you get to have a name. So she's revealing intentionally that she's his family. And then the general is very much fooled by that, and he's saying, I'll be the first to say that it's a joy. The fiefdom's general answered with a grin. He took his seat and blithely sipped his tea. So he's being lulled into a false sense of security now that, oh yes, everything's going to go my way now. Our mediator is my ally's king. A masterstroke, the general thought with glee. He said as much once they were out the door, so once the negotiation's over, he's gone and told Omvet, such a good job getting your mother to be the mediator of the negotiation. Very, very good job there. We're definitely going to win these negotiations now. But then he goes and says, do not be fooled, for I will have my war. Remember, he's the general of the lord, the vassal lord, who just wants to kill people. So, of course, he's going to be bloodthirsty. And he is, and he desperately wants to have a war. And on that, we end the cycle. So that's Sonnet 70. And then in cycle 8, well, things are going to get interesting. But you've got to wait a while to listen to my explications of that one. But you can listen to the actual sonnets themselves already. Well, not all of them, but a lot of them. So thank you for watching, and maybe the next one will be on time. We'll see. We will see.